Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the REDX podcast. My name is Andrew, and I am super excited for today's guest. He's an agent, he's a team leader, he's a coach, he's a trainer, and he is a return guest on this podcast. Cyrus Mohseni. Cyrus, how you doing today, my man?
Doing well, doing well. How you doing, brother? Good seeing you again.
Yeah, you too. You too. Thanks for being here. Last time you were on the podcast, and I'm going to call this out because I think everyone should go back and watch that episode. We learned a lot about you. We learned about your former life as a professional soccer player. Super cool. Your early days in real estate, how you did 30 million in production in your first year, along with all the routines and strategies and tips that kind of contributed to that success. So please, if you want to go check that out, anyone who's watching live later on, go check out that past episode. It's amazing. Today, we're going to dive a little deeper into mindset, defining success, a lot of the more granular stuff that goes into and feeds the habits and patterns that kind of contribute to the success. And Cyrus is like an amazing coach. I mean, you were just telling me before we got going that you've had a lot of success traveling and doing this coaching tour and speaking to a lot of agents out there. So we'll get into that a little bit and give you a chance to talk about that. But before we get going, just usual business for our audience. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, please, if you have questions for Cyrus, and we'll put you on the spot here, Cyrus. You're a coach. I assume you're good at answering questions on the spot, but please put them in the chat, and we'll do our best to get those answered. We are live here. And if you're listening to this later on your own time, please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, on Apple, wherever you like to listen. And that way you can get notifications for new episodes every week. So Cyrus, let's get going, my man. I don't know. Where do you want to stop? Or sorry, where do you want to start?
Never want to stop.
Yeah, we never
always
want
to keep going.
There you go. There you go. Well, let's start by talking about some of your coaching. Maybe you can fill in a few of the gaps with your journey and how you got into real estate. A little quicker than we did on that first episode. They can go watch, but give us a little background. Where are you from, and what are you doing these days?
Yeah, I'm based here in Southern California, right? Orange County specifically. I started as again, you said it. I used to play soccer. That was my past life. I played soccer for a living. I got in a car accident that ended my soccer career. Got into real estate, found success very quickly, and then I realized that I wanted to continue the success and find a way to be able to positively impact other people, right? Which gets into like this subject of like definition of success, right? Like for a long time, I defined success with material values. So got into real estate, started crushing it, went and then paid my mom's house off, bought my dream car, G63 AMG, lifted, matte black, all red interior. I mean, everything you could think about, like it was there, right? And then I did all this, and then I'm like, now what? Right. And I was like, I never, growing up, you always see these things and like, you're like, oh, when I hit this, it's like, I made it. I'm going to be successful, blah, blah, blah.
I'll be
then
happy.
You realize when you hit these things, yeah, exactly. That's the thought process.
Right.
You're like, oh, I'm going to be happy.
The happiness trap.
The reality is like that doesn't exist. Like the reality is what ends up happening. You hit those things and then it's like, oh, but I could do this, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. And then it just continually, it's like that moving goalpost, right? And it is exactly what you just said, is like, it's because we are chasing happiness, right? We're chasing fullness. We're chasing this thought process that when we hit this, we'll be happy, we'll be content, and then we'll go from there. But the reality is like, it's not always about that result, right? Life is like, we're born and then we die. Like that's our reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, everything in between is what actually is life.
Right.
And if we're always focused on the result of life, the result is death. Like that's the reality, right?
Sure.
But what actually brings us joy and everything through life is the day to day, is the, for instance, me taking my niece to soccer practice and coaching her soccer team. Like that's what actually life is about, right? And so I had to quickly look at, like, at that moment when I realized, like, I reached my biggest goals that I had, I realized, like there's got to be more, right?
Mm.
So I shifted my whole definition of success. I shifted it from being these material things and me chasing another award or things like this to positively impacting one person on a daily basis, right?
Amazing. Amazing. I love that, Cyrus, because I think that, and I hope agents are listening right now, because I think a lot of them get stuck in this kind of happiness trap where they say, well, I'm going to become a real estate agent because I want money. And then they get some money, and then they're chasing that next commission check, and then they're chasing this. And so I'm curious, like, if it's not, I mean, you explained this a little bit, but if it's not about the material stuff, if it's not about the money, if it's not about hitting that goal and then being happy, um, what do you use to kind of keep yourself driven to keep doing your coaching and your real estate and all that?
Well, like, I mean, look, so again, I used to play soccer for a living, right?
Mm,
I still talk to a lot of players. My friends are still playing. I have players that are growing up that are still that are going to go pro, right? And I was talking to one of the girls, one of the college girls yesterday actually, yeah. And I was on the phone with her, and I was having this conversation with her because she's not playing right now. She's one of the best
mm,
players in the country. She's not playing right now, and I'm on the phone with her, and I said, what you have to look at is you're defining your success with something that someone else controls,
mm,
right? You don't control if you get to play or not. You don't
right.
control if you get that award or not, right? You can't control those things. So when we look at success and we look at, hey, you know what? I want to reach, XYZ result. Like, do we actually control that result? Like, that's my first thing that I look at. Like, that's what I had to look at, is like, I'm not controlling any of these things. Like, so like the reality is what do I control? I control my output,
Mm,
right? I control my impact on others, right? Like, I control the fact that I'm going to be able to go out there and can I positively impact somebody, right? Like, that was just it. And what motivated me what motivates me on a daily basis now is, like, I'm hitting my success on a daily basis. So then I feel like I win at all times,
mm,
right? Versus before, if for instance, let's go with calling, like cold calling, if your definition of success is getting a lead and closing a transaction, like, you're not going to last in this business,
mm,
because the reality is like, you don't control that. You can control your output. You can control jumping on the phones at 8 a.m. and finishing at 12 noon, no earlier, no later, so on and so forth. You can control jumping on the phones for 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day, whatever you want to do. You cannot control somebody saying they want to work with you,
mm,
right? And
right.
I think so many agents chase this thought process of success is me closing XYZ deal. You don't control that. So what do I control on my output, right? So I look at, okay, hey, what can I output? What can I control as an agent? Looking at, again, calling on, let's REDX, right? We're looking at REDX. We say, okay, we're going to jump on REDX and we're going to make our phone calls. Well, the reality is like if you're looking at your successes, I get one lead, I add someone to my CRM. I look at, these are my KPIs for success. Like, the reality is like, you're going to feel one day, maybe not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, whatever, you're going to feel unsuccessful
Mm,
because you didn't hit that KPI. And so what's going to motivate you to go the next day when you feel unsuccessful? And then the next day you're unsuccessful. And the next day, then what ends up happening? You're
You give up.
demotivated, and you're like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, exactly. Oh, well, it just didn't work. No, your definition of success didn't work.
Right. Right. Okay. So
Right.
let's. I mean, I love this, and a lot of coaches do teach to daily KPIs, daily goals, daily success, and they do say, okay, if you fail today, that's fine, do it tomorrow. But the reality is, if you fail so many days in a row, like you said, it's going to get harder and harder and harder. So if it's not about the money, if it's not about the KPIs, if it's not even about these daily things, what would you tell a new agent, especially who's getting into this, who really needs that mindset and that drive to stay motivated?
Look, my job as a coach is to get someone to get to the next level, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of people, they come to me and they're like, okay, yeah, I want to do this. What do I need to do? Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But the only way that I can get someone to the next level is if they are pushing themselves to the highest amount of their ability on a daily basis.
Hmm.
That's the only way there's growth. If not, I'm just pushing you to your highest amount of ability, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're for instance, you're able to go to 60 miles per hour right now, and you're driving at 30, like I can push you to 60, but like you're not getting any better than you actually are. The best athletes in the world, the best business people in the world, they push themselves completely to the edge, and then the coach takes them to the next level. Right. And that's where, when you're getting into this business, you have to look at and say, what am I doing on a daily basis to get better and push myself to the next level?
Right.
Because life is a continuous journey. And if you think like for a second that you got it figured out and it's perfect, you lost.
Hmm.
Right. Every single day, like for me specifically, I train some of the top agents in the country. Me specifically, I spend minimum of 2 hours a day learning. That means
Hmm.
I go and I find a book to read, a podcast to read, a video, YouTube videos to watch, whatever it is. I'm taking in information. Minimum 2 hours a day, because I realize that I will never know everything, but I will always chase knowing everything.
Right.
Right. And so when it comes to calling and it comes to all of these things, like you have to look at your thought process. You have to look at your day to day, your calls as training. It's practice.
Mm.
You got to show up every day as an athlete, right? As a professional soccer player, I had to show up to practice every day. I had to do fitness, and I hate fitness. I had to go to the gym, and I hate going to the gym. I still hate going to the gym, but I still go, right? Because you want XYZ results down the line, you got to hit the gym. You got to do that, right? And when you look at your day to day, my win on a daily basis is what I control, not the result that's going to come down the line.
Right.
Right? Because I control my success. You don't control my success, period, end of story. Right? And I'm never going to put my success in someone else's hands, because the reality is like the best way to success, and the fastest way that I'm going to reach success is if I push myself to the highest ability. And then I go and I find somebody that's going to get me to the next level, right? But on a daily basis, can I go and I say, okay, hey, you know what? My success is calling for this many hours every single day. As long as I go through the process, I won. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like where you were just headed with that, because I want to kind of break this down into what you would tell an agent or a new agent, and say, okay, here is your daily routine, and here is how you can help your mindset align with feeling satisfied as you go and feeling happy as you go through that daily routine, even if you don't get the results that you want, right? Like let's break it down hour by hour, from prospecting to appointments to whatever. Take us through a day in the life of the real estate agent with some of those tips, to keep that mindset steady.
Yeah. So going back to our last call, I think I went through like my schedule of like how I actually hit 30 million in my first year, right? And
Right.
it's very simple schedule. It's not rocket science, right?
Hmm.
It was call 8 a.m. to 12 noon every single day.
Hmm.
12 to 1 is my lunch and my door knock prep time, right?
Mm.
So as I'm eating lunch, I'm prepping for my door knocking wherever I'm doing it, whether it's going to be for an open house this weekend or the farm that I'm looking at, yada, yada, yada. And then 1 o'clock, so 12 to 1, I'm lunch and prep. 1 o'clock, I'm door knocking. Not leaving to go door knock, I'm door knocking, right? 1 to 3, I door knock. And then 3 o'clock, afterwards, I come back to my office or my house or whatever, wherever I was at the time, and I make sure that all of my notes and everything is inside my CRM,
Mm.
right? So I added everything into my CRM so that I'm organized, and then I started my follow up, right? So pretty much 3 o'clock to 4 is my time to do my enter everything into my CRM. Drive home, whatever it is, right? Like get in front of my computer, put everything in, and then 4 o'clock to 6, I'm doing all my follow up.
Hmm.
And if you have like the thing about real estate is like it's very easy to go off schedule. Like it's so
Right.
easy to be like, oh well, I got to go do this. Oh well, it's really easy to be busy. It's really hard to be productive.
Right. And I think, but what you're saying, it's easy to be busy and productive, which in some ways might make it feel like it's easier to feel successful, but you still might not get the results, even if you're busy and even if you're productive, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between being productive and productive tasks versus just being busy.
Right.
You know
Okay.
what I mean? Like it's
Yep.
easy for me to fill time is my point, right? Like it's easy for me to be like, "Oh, well, I got to go do this." Like, but is that productivity? Like are you
Sure.
doing money-making activities, yada yada yada, right? Like so for me, now that was my schedule, right?
Right.
That's the formula that I use to get to what I needed to where I'm at now. Like that's it. Period. End of story. There's no rocket science. There's no like, oh, did this all kind of crazy stuff. No, that was it. Just stuck down every day. Did that. Did 2 open houses on the weekend. Period. End of story. Done. Right now, do I particularly like jumping on the phones for 4 hours a day? No. Like the reality is like I, sitting down and sometimes I go 20 minutes without getting an answer. Sometimes I go 1 minute without getting an answer. Sometimes I get an answer and then they tell me to F off, yada, yada, yada. But am I particularly like, oh man, I can't wait to do this? No. And
Right.
I think most agents that do this will feel the same way. Right. But the reality is my win was, did I go my 4 hours, 8 a.m. to 12 noon, period. I didn't take my break. I didn't do anything. I just went through, crushed it. Yeah, I won today. Okay, did I do my door knocking? Boom. I went 2 hours of door knocking straight up. I did it. I win. Did I do my follow-up calls? I went through my smart list. Boom, I did it. I win. And here's the reality. As a new agent, right? As a new agent, you're I think a lot of the times, like especially nowadays, we're so used to because of our phones, right? Like we're so used to instant gratification. We're so
Right.
used to like we want something, it's there, boom, boom, boom. What we forget that like if you're making quote unquote fast money leaves fast,
Hmm.
right? Like you got to sit down and like put in the work. When you put in the work, that's long-term money and you'll have long-term success. Right? Because now just take this in perspective. Like maybe you call, let's say 80 on a single line dialer, let's say 50 to 80 calls an hour, right? On a
Mhm.
single line dialer. And maybe you're calling for 4 hours a day. Let's say it's 50 because it's just easier in math for me,
Right.
It's what, 50 calls, 50 times 2 is 100. So 200 phone calls, right? So I'm making 200 phone calls a day. Let's say out of those 200, let's just pretend, let's say 50 of them tell me to F off. And maybe today was a day that I only got one person on the line that was nice to me. Like if you do the math and then I go and I door knock and I meet one other person. If I do the math on this, right, and I just meet 2 people every day, like just have normal conversations and build relationships with 2 people. I'm not talking about you meeting 50 people or 20 people or whatever. And I'm not talking about people that might want to sell. I'm talking about a relationship. That's it. Just talk to them, put them into your CRM, follow up with them, see how they're doing, see how their kids are doing, yada, 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 right? 2 people a day. Let's say you're calling for, let's say 300 days out of the year. Let's say you take 65 days off, right? Times 300, right? So that's 600. And let's pretend you have a 5% conversion. Let's go super low on that. 600 times point, what is that? 5% conversion rate. That's 30 transactions.
And that's good money in real
estate. Putting 2 people in your CRM every single day and having a 5% conversion rate, which you're probably going to have a higher conversion rate than that. And that's taking 65 days off a year from prospecting activities.
Right. And I think one thing that came to my mind, and I think
the reality is, I can't hear your audio.
Oh. Hello, testing. Can the audience hear me?
Maybe it's me. I don't know. Hello. I can't hear any of your audio.
No worries. Keep going.
But the reality is you're doing at a 5% convert. Let's say you do a 10% convert. You do 60 transactions, and that's putting 2 people in a day, and that's putting not 2 people in that want to specifically buy or sell real estate, right? That's just meeting 2 people every single day. Now, in my opinion, if you do these activities, because I've done it, right, you're going to put more than 2 people in a day.
Right.
So at the end of the day, where we're going to win is just focusing on the process, on hitting my 4 hours a day, hitting my 2 hours a day, my 4 hours of calling, my 2 hours of door knocking, hitting my 2 open houses a week. If I just do that, you're going to have success that just comes. And I tell people all the time, hey, if you don't believe me, just do that for 90 days. Right? Just do that for 90 days. All you have. All right. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I hear you.
Okay. Now. Wonderful. Well,
you just do that for 90 days.
Yeah.
Straight. I guarantee you'll have business. It's a no-brainer, but you have to really commit to that. Every single day, doing that schedule, every single day, putting those people in, you'll see it'll pay dividends down the line.
Absolutely. And one thing that came to my mind, Cyrus, and I'm sure that there are some agents out there thinking the same thing, is that okay, well, if I'm only meeting 2 people a day, and even that is leading to potentially 30 transactions a year, conservatively, right? If just meeting 2 people a day and adding them to your CRM and following up with them doesn't sound fulfilling, or doesn't sound like you're going to get that now business that I think a lot of agents crave, you got to understand that these are conservative numbers, right? Somewhere along the way, somewhere in the mix of those 600 people that you meet every year and that you follow up with every year, there are going to be some of them that do want to transact now, and the rest are going to be that future business, right? And I love that. I love that you broke it down very conservatively, right? It's okay, 2 a day, easy. Follow up, easy. 30 transactions a year, awesome. Probably more than that, right? So
100%. The reality is we're not talking about that. I haven't even touched base on the fact that you do this with your expired leads and whatnot. Those people want to sell now.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not even those aren't even conversations that we've even touched yet, right? Sure. I'm saying just go through the process. Business is gonna fall out, right? But then you're talking about the expired leads that you're calling using REDX and whatnot. And the reality is those people want to transact ASAP. And if they don't, they want to transact in 2 months, 3 months, whatever, right?
Right.
but they want to go. So you're going to have the now business as well. But I think that it's very important to go into any conversation understanding you're in for a long-term relationship. I look at
Mm,
it like dating, right? Like if I go, my partner or whatever, I'm engaged now, but like when I was dating, if I just go up to them and I'm like, hey, you want to go back to my place now? And that's the first thing that I say to them, what's going to end up happening? Like the reality is, they're going to be like, get out of my face. Like I'm probably going
right.
to get a drink thrown in my face. I'm probably going to get slapped, right? So like you have to go into it knowing that, like, hey, look, like if I'm dating, like I'm gonna build a long-term relationship with you, and I'm gonna actually take care of you, and you can't do that if you're desperate.
Right.
And the reason you become desperate is because you crave success.
Mm,
And the reality is if you change your success, your definition of success to that process,
mm.
then you won't crave that success because you're going to feel successful every single day. Then you can have a natural conversation with people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a little bit cliche, but it's about the journey, not the destination, right? And the destination is always fun. It can be rewarding, but one of our viewers chimed in, from an earlier point. We're always taught to one up ourselves, and if you're always doing that, then you're not going to appreciate the journey, right? You're going to be craving that
Correct.
next win, and you're not going to, and it's going to come across, right? I think that if that's your mindset, then it's going to be super detectable by the people you're talking to, right? We hear the term commission breath or sales breath. It doesn't come across as authentic. It doesn't come across as, hey, I'm just here to build a relationship. I'm here ultimately to be your friend and be a nice person to follow up with and have a good connection in the real estate industry, right? If it's casual, if it's friendly, if it's authentic, that comes across. And that's how those 600 people a year turn into 30 transactions, not you getting impatient and you being a little bit, too forward on the first date, to use your metaphor. So,
Correct. Correct. And the other thing is like the other thing to ask yourself is like, how long do I want to be in this business?
mm,
Because if you want to be in this business long term, then it really is about the process. It really is about
right,
your systems and your process.
right,
Like if you want to just make some quick money and leave, like I'm sorry, this business is probably not for you.
mm,
But if you want to have a long-term career in this business, it's planting the seeds, planting the seeds, planting the seeds, planting the seeds. And when you plant these seeds over time, they will bear fruit. As long as you continue to water them, as long as you continue to take care of them, so on and so forth. And
right,
that's our business. That's what we do, right? And that's why now I have, such success on the brokerage side, is because now I've been able to, all these seeds and trees that I planted, they're bearing fruit. And now I have people picking that fruit, right?
right.
I don't have to be the only one picking the fruit now. And that's called scaling your business. That's a whole different conversation, you know?
Right, right. Well, we are going to have you back to maybe get into that conversation, Cyrus. We're running low on time here for us today, but thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing all this. If you could leave just one last word of wisdom, one last thing with our audience today, what would that be?
I think it sounds, again, cliche. It's the same thing that you said. It's about the journey. It's trusting the process and leaning into the process.
Mm,
Like I always say, don't stop, keep going. Like
right,
every day, just lean into the process, focus in, make your win that you crushed the process,
right.
right? Not I obtained this result. And if you do that, you'll win long term.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think you've said it earlier in the show, be process driven rather than results driven. And that's what leads to that success. So
Correct.
amazing, Cyrus. Thank you so much again for joining us today. Thank you to our audience for chiming in, for watching live. Cyrus, if anyone wants to check out your tour or your coaching, where can they go?
Um, they can connect with me on social media at Cyrus Andre, Cyrusandre, or go to my website. It's cyrusmohseni.com. So it's CYRUSMOHSENI.com. And as far as like, coaching or consulting, it's backslash, cyrusmohseni.com/coaching and consulting. If it's to book for a speaking engagement or a podcast interview or something like that, it's just cyrusmohseni.com/book Cyrus. Really cool. I know I mentioned it earlier, but I have chosen to go with a proud to pay model versus a hey, this is how much I charge for my coaching.
Cool.
So there's a form on there that you can fill out, and it literally says like, how much do you want to pay for coaching, and then we go from
Mm.
there.
I love that. I love that. Awesome. Well, I put all those links in the chat on YouTube and Facebook. So if anyone's interested, go check out those links. It was also on screen there for a minute, cyrusmohseni.com. Go check it out. Cyrus, thank you again so much for joining us. To our audience, if you liked what you heard today, you want to go catch more, go catch that past episode we did with Cyrus. Go to the redx.com or redx.com/podcast. I'm going to put a QR code on screen here that'll take you there. And if you're a podcast subscriber and you go to that link through that QR code, you can save $150 when you sign up for REDX and implement the skills and the strategies and the tactics that you learn here that we learned today from Cyrus. So Cyrus, again, thank you so much. And to everyone out there, we will see you next week. Same time, same place. Thanks, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you.